All right, kick things off with a quick little slide on housekeeping items. So if we haven't met yet, hello, I'm Rebecca. I'm the community manager here at Bucketlist, and I'll be the event host today. This is Tila. Tila, I'll let you do your own introductions down a couple slides because you'll be our facilitator for the day today. And so the chat box feature is open. Please make sure the blue drop down is selected to everyone if it's a comment you want all of us to be seeing. And Q&A box is also open. Please put all your comments and questions in there for us to ask at the end. The professional development credits will also be shared at the end of the session. And of course, the session is being recorded and we'll send it out via email after the event. Now, let's take a few moments to set the stage for the conversation today. So the topic is rethinking retention, how to keep your best people in 2026. I just love hearing people brag about how much they enjoy working where they work. And lately, I've been gathering customer stories and hearing just the most incredible stories from employees from those organizations. For example, a director shared that, years ago when they first started at that job, they had moved from Kansas to Missouri just to, take that leap of faith and take the job because they got such a great impression of the culture and during the interview process. And years later, they're still there. At another organization, a nurse said that on her way to work, there's actually like 3 or 4 other hospitals she could be working at, but she wouldn't dream of leaving her current employer because she just loves it there so, so much. And yesterday at a webinar, someone commented that their company's values align so closely with their own that their 20-year-old self would be so proud to see where she's at now. And I just think those stories are so awesome. And it just really reminds us that engagement and retention aren't these abstract ideas. They just really show up in these real choices that people are making every day. And so for today's topic, today's webinar, we are joined by a panel of seasoned leaders who will share real-world insights into trends that they're seeing, what's been working, what's changing, and how organizations can strengthen their culture for the year ahead.
Mhm.
All right, quick poll here, just so we can get ourselves some insights as well and see what the group here thinks. All right, is it showing up, Tila?
That's good.
Perfect. Yeah, because we're every team is different, so we'd love to start by hearing from you about these retention trends that you're seeing. The first question is about the biggest impact that retention had on your organization this year. I just think it's so interesting for us to take a gander at what everyone's seeing. And then the second question is about what's changed most about employee expectation since the last year. This one's also very interesting. So we'll let folks take a few moments to um, gather their thoughts. And Tila, I'll pass it over to you to kick off the panel introductions. And then after
Perfect.
that, we can come back to the poll results and have that kind of lead us into the conversation.
That sounds great. Okay, well, thank you. Shout out to Rebecca and the Bucket List team for really bringing this together. I work in like deep partnership with Confetti and Bucket List, and I think we're probably ready to dive in. I know the idea of retention and engagement, it's broad, and I'm excited to take it there with the folks you see here on the panel and really like unpack the different layers of that. If we look at, there's tons of research out there, but if we look at things like, Gallup's article talking about that the US has fallen to the lowest like employee engagement level in the past decade, where like 31% of employees are feeling engaged. And I think it's safe to say a lot of that is not a surprise here to the folks, especially the cost of what disengagement does to the employee and to the business. But a lot of what Rebecca was sharing too, it's like, the interesting part is that organizations that are winning at things like retention, they aren't necessarily spending just more money. They're being more intentional about that connection and that growth and how they really support their people. And so the intention and purpose for today is to really like unpack those things, tease those apart, because they aren't necessarily abstract ideas. I mean, I sit here and I look at this chat and I see all the different like creative and fun and engaging ways that people are just putting that dedicated time out there for folks to come together. So with that, I want to welcome to the virtual stage. We have Katie Ray, the Director of People and Culture at Bucketlist Rewards. We have Lee Rubin, who's the co-founder and CEO at Confetti. And we have Julianne Hugo, the Senior Director of People at Premier Nutrition, and one of our amazing ThinkHuman community members. So welcome, welcome, welcome. There's a thunderous applause.
Yeah,
I'm gonna just like translate it from the chat, the audience. I promise you all.
I'm sure. I'm sure.
I love that. Um, Perfect. Well, and Lee, I don't know if you're able to. Nope, we've lost you. There we go. Perfect. Good to see you. Good to see your faces. Happy Thursday. Um, Great. Well, we're just gonna hop on into it. So I kind of want to start a little bit about just like the baseline, where we're at today, right? So would love to hear from each of you. You know, as you reflect on 2025, what has surprised you the most when it comes to employee turnover, engagement? And then can you even go deeper? Like, can you share how that surprise has changed or adapted your approach?
Yeah, maybe I'll kick it off. I think what surprises me just personally is the continued focus on career pathing and employees really wanting to have a check the box. I do this and I get here methodology. And I think for many of us, we live in this space regularly. We're reading a lot. We're seeing what's out there, and we recognize that things are changing so fast that these standard career paths that used to be part of normal corporate life are not as easy to do anymore because
Mm,
things are changing so fast. And so it has surprised me that for employees that has not changed at all, and they are very dedicated to this. Just tell me what that next step is. And so I think that continues to surprise me a little bit.
mm,
Yeah, I 100% agree with that. I read something recently about helping employees grow where they're planted. And that doesn't always mean a promotion, but it's giving people that opportunity to stretch and learn and evolve. Um, but something I think that surprised me, like working in a fully remote company, I thought we had remote culture pretty well figured out. We have a pretty high retention rate, around 90%, which I'm extremely proud
wow.
of. But
Okay.
yeah, but I mean, looking back over the year, I think what really surprised me is like how much the theme of connection kept coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like, in the early years after 2020 and the pandemic, remote work felt like freedom, like more balance, fewer commutes, more autonomy. But I'm
Yep.
feeling a bit of a shift in meetings and surveys. There's just like a bit of a feeling of disconnection. It's not that people are unhappy. I feel like they're tired. They're tired in the remote world of, all the video calls, working in isolation, building relationships through a screen. So you miss those micro moments in the remote world that make work feel human. So, like the hallway chats, the little check ins, the things that are really hard to replicate virtually.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's about adding more events or meetings. People are so busy already, their calendars are jam packed. So, even like well intentioned things, lunch and learn, social events can end up just feeling like another meeting. So, I feel like the real challenge isn't engagement, it's intentional connection.
Mm-hmm.
And not just to each other, but to the bigger picture and the purpose and the vision of the company as well. So that's
Right.
something that I definitely am feeling this year.
That makes sense. And like you said, bucket list, you guys are 100% remote. And I like you bringing up those like points of connection and how things are shifted. How would you make remote work feel connected again? If it isn't through just like certain, let's do this lunch and learn or this event, what would that look like, folks?
Yeah, we've really been kind of adjusting as we go, I think, and I think that the learning on my part is keep asking for feedback. How are we doing? How does this feel? So we've really been reworking our cadence, offering different and variety of ways for people to connect, whether it's knowledge sharing, virtual games, coffee chats, virtual volunteering has been something we've leaned into, but spacing things out so there's more options, less pressure for folks. And then in cities where we have clusters of teammates, we've been trying to keep those in-person moments pretty simple, like opportunities to
Okay.
work together, volunteer together, have a happy hour, lunch, just, but checking in and saying like, okay, is this the right cadence? Are we enjoying this? Like, how are we
Mm-hmm.
feeling? Just to make sure we're continuing to do things that are like meaningful and that people actually want to do.
Mhm. And I'd love to hear from you, Lee. And the one part I want to bring up too, Katie, that I like you talking about like the pace and like changing and checking in. Julianne, you also kind of talked about that, the changing of roles. So I feel like yeah, that checking in moment to see like what needs to shift to still make sense for folks is really important. Lee, would love to hear from you.
Yeah, I think to kind of build on that, like, the people in the front line that are often doing the check-ins is the managers.
Mm,
And I think one very surprising thing that I felt like came out of this year, there was a couple of different stats. One of them was from Gallup that revealed that managers account for 70% of the variance in employee engagement, making them the most significant factor in retention. And then there was
okay.
another stat that came out, I think it was from TriNet, and it was that 57% of employees have left a company because of their manager, and another
Mm,
32% have seriously considered leaving because of their manager. And
hmm.
so like my thinking is around like managers really matter more than like almost like any company initiative. And like I always knew that managers played a really key role, but I think these stats really surprise like how disproportionately important they are. Retention is very hyper local, in my opinion. And a team with a great manager can really retain talent, even when the company is going through turbulence. And the opposite is also true, where, talented people leave companies, but they almost leave managers first.
Hmm. I've definitely heard that you quit your manager, not your company.
That's
I don't know
right.
if other folks have heard.
Yeah.
Yeah,
100%.
yeah. So I know that we had answers to the polls and from the audience. I want to share that with everybody here. So when we talked about what's made the biggest impact on retention at your organization this year, the number one we had was flexibility and work-life balance. So that's made the biggest impact. Then compensation and benefits. And then we have career growth opportunities, recognition and rewards, and then manager development. So I feel like Lee, there's some really good nuggets we can drop in here because I feel like you're saying like, hey, actually like investing in managers is that gift that's going to keep on giving.
Yeah, totally. It's, they're kind of like the pulse. They're the face of that team. Like you're spending the most amount of time with your manager, with your direct reports. That's where I think people like companies should invest more in.
Right. Does
Yeah, and the
any
managers are the ones caught in the middle, right? So they're having to translate strategy to day to day, and they're the ones
Exactly.
kind of caught between that higher level and the employees and really trying to make sure things are making sense. And they're not necessarily always making the decisions, but they have to support the decisions. So they're in a tough spot. So really taking care of the managers impacts how the employees experience really shows up for them.
And I know that money is like super important, but I do think that at the end of the day, people usually don't leave because of money. They leave when like the meaning of their job starts to erode. And like the true like driver for that erosion of meaning is like meaningful work, meaningful impact, meaningful recognition, meaningful relationships. Like those are the things that ultimately like make employees stay through tough times when they still feel like deeply connected to why their work matters.
Yeah, absolutely.
I love that a lot. Anything or surprise you about what some of those poll results have shared, like what people have said in the poll? Does all of that kind of like track for you all? Is like as you look at yeah, the flexibility, work-life balance, compensation. I know we're kind of shifting a little bit and we have more to say about that later, but anything else spark for folks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the flexibility, we're in a really tough time right now because I think coming out of pandemic, there was this belief that the way of work is changing and we're all going to be able to be remote and live from anywhere in the world. And as Katie identified in some of the struggles that people are now starting to realize that connection to other people is so important.
Mhm.
And so this flexibility and this hybrid, we've seen kind of a whiplash reaction to some companies of bringing everybody back 5 days, and so I think we're seeing a little bit of people are trying to figure out what does this really look like, and for employees who even if they want connection, they still have really benefited in a lot of ways from the flexibility. And so how do we help managers, going back to those managers, Lee, of really how do you help engage in flexibility while still maintaining, consistency and collaboration and those connection points that are so important in organizations for innovation and speed. Um, how do you still, as a manager, work with your team to provide some flexibility where you can? It's not may not always be on where you can work from, but maybe, work hours, maybe flexibility in the projects that you're working on, maybe flexibility in other ways that we can really dive into. So I think flexibility itself is a very broad term, but that it doesn't surprise me that's what employees are seeking. And as leaders, we have to be able to help them find it somewhere within their work.
I think one thing also, and this is, maybe like a kind of a hard topic to talk about, like, but, employees often say, like, and you see this in the poll results, like there's higher expectations for manager communication and transparency. And obviously, a manager is subject to the transparency to some extent of their manager. And for larger organizations, that kind of game of telephone can be pretty challenging, and being like, look, I literally am telling you whatever I know. This is what we got to work with. And then I also know that, we've played around with different levers of transparency at Confetti. And I think I'm always kind of curious. Maybe I'm like a little bit stuck in like the CEO mindset, where I've lost kind of the viewpoint of what does transparency like fully even mean for employees. But I know that, like, it's sometimes challenging to share the full story of what things look like. Sometimes you're not even allowed. Like, right. I often tell my team, like, look, I can't tell you when another employee is like totally bombing their role or their job, or they're going through health challenges. And like, I can't tell you why things are shifting always. Like, I want to, but I also want to respect their privacy and all those things. So I think transparency is always one of those things that's just kind of difficult to navigate in the workforce in full transparency. Like, are you going to get more reassurance if your company tells you, hey guys, we're doing terribly? Like, now you got transparency, but like, are you going to be retained now? Or are you like really excited to go and wake up for work? Yeah. So like, companies struggle with figuring out like what is the talk track that will ultimately get people to stay and get people excited. And I think that, it's like a larger conversation to be had.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, I would love to. So I know we're gonna shift a little bit into some things that are working, but Katie and Julianne, I mean, looking at the kind of poll results, and Lee already kind of shined on it, like what's changed about employee expectations? They say expectations for manager and communication. What have you both noticed? Like, how have employee expectations really shifted this past year?
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, I think I second Lee's topic on transparency. We always were fairly transparent company, or very transparent company, and as we've gone public over the last several years, and those things change, and people don't. There is an expectation that you are going to share everything, because that's how, as a smaller company, we really did. And that change of not sharing everything is definitely impacting how our employees are feeling, I think, at times. And so it's how do you build trust other ways? Keep going back to those managers, Lee. It's building trust with those managers, right? And if they can trust you and trust what you are telling them, they trust you have a reason for not telling them everything, right? And so that really builds into that. But yeah, I think transparency is a good call out.
100%. And just to add on to that, I think employees want to know everything. I find at times we've had to address things that our business isn't even going through. They're seeing all the layoffs out there, and they want to know, like, is that in the future for our company? So having to address things that aren't even a thing for the company. But I think it comes back to the foundation of trust that you build with the team, sharing as much as possible, having those leaders build that trust with their team, and then also helping those leaders communicate the tough things, or giving them talk tracks, and like how to answer some questions, and just lean into that. Like, we're try to be as honest as possible. We have your best interest in mind. When there's things to communicate, we will. And sometimes, again, answering the questions that aren't even a topic with the company, but just addressing kind of the macro environment as well.
That's a
Yeah.
really great call out, Katie. I think that's impacting everybody on a pretty intense schedule level. And I'm seeing Rachel talk about stability and in the chat, and that is absolutely a thing that I think is impacting most employees right now is this fear of how stable is any organization at this point in time between AI and the environment that we're all in and how fast things are changing. People just they're looking for that stability right now. There's all these things that they want in an organization, but I think having stability is really important at this time.
Right. And it feels like, I mean, the constant thing is that whether it's external or it's internal, there is change. And that big anchor point is going to be through communication. And then if we're thinking about scalability, I feel like in many ways, more than one, folks have talked about that managers can help be that anchor point. So, for folks that need to develop those like skills to be able to have those communication points, I feel like could make a tremendous impact. And so I kind of want to help us shift a little bit to like, okay, what are some things that we can let go of? I feel like there's a lot of ways we're adapting and changing based off new technologies in the market. So from your vantage points, whoever would like to weigh in first, what is something that we can let go of, or like what's one engagement or retention practice that, we can say goodbye to, or this isn't working anymore?
I'm gonna go with I know this is maybe a little bit controversial, but I think the concept of like an annual engagement survey, or we can say goodbye to that. Because at that point it's really like a post-mortem. It's not even like a pulse check. And I think by the time that we analyze and socialize and operationalize all the results, like half the team has already like either moved on, like mentally, like, or literally, like engagement needs to be now, it needs to be real time, it needs to be dynamic. And measuring it once a year is like checking the weather every December and calling it like a climate strategy or something.
I like that. That's good, Lee.
Oh,
Yeah.
thanks.
I think something that I think that we can let go of is the kind of the one size fits all approach to engagement and retention. I think as leaders, it's easy to assume that people are motivated by the same things, but the truth is what keeps people around is so deeply personal to the individual. For some, like we said, it's compensation. For others, it's flexibility. Others want the chance to stretch and grow. But I think coming back to the leaders, we've been trying to put more of a focus on helping leaders really get to know their people, not just at a surface level, but like really understand what matters to them. And something that we've done that we found is effective is we create templates and tools to support those conversations. One of my favorites is called a user manual. I don't know if anybody has heard of this, but it's really simple document, but a leader and a team member would complete this and share it. We often use it for new leaders joining, or if somebody's, has a new direct report. Nice. It can even be shared across the team, but it could cover anything. But things that we have are like, what can you expect from me as your leader? How do you like to receive feedback? What helps you do your best work? What frustrates you at work? Like things like that, just to get to know each other and kind of have a two-way conversation. It sounds small, but it really opens up conversations and helps everyone kind of work better together.
Love that.
Yeah, I love both of those. I think for me, and maybe this is controversial as well, it's the monetary rewards as being the sole way to reward, and so that's kind of the one size fits all. But it's the research shows that monetary lasts for such a short amount of time, and it does not have ongoing lasting incentivization. As long as you are able to survive, right, and you're getting paid that fair wage. Outside of that, those bonuses don't really attract as much as managers keeps thinking they do. Oh, I want to give them a bonus, and so for us, it's letting go of that and really taking that not one size fits all approach of, hey, what about a real nice gift card to something that means something to them? They like concerts, get them to a gift card to a ticket venue that can they can choose their own concert and they have an experience, right? And so really trying to find different ways to recognize outside of just this, let's throw money on a check, that if it's direct deposit, they don't even see it after taxes. It feels like
Right.
nothing, right? It just really does not have the cachet it used to.
Mm, that's so good. Yeah, I feel like there's and that goes again to this common theme of like you can find out those things about what's Julianne's favorite concert by having that conversation with her, whether you're remote or you're in the
Absolutely.
office. It's just like being intentional about creating that space to, share and connect with each other. I love that. So let's flip it. So I know a lot of folks are kind of interested around like retention and measurement. So can you share an example of something that you've seen at your organizations that has made a difference in retaining people that like, you all kind of like hit on? But then even more like, how are you measuring that effectiveness? How do you know that these new strategies you're implementing are actually like making an impact?
Happy to start. I know it's a little bit of a different one. We're a smaller organization. And I know this isn't necessarily something that every company of every company size can do, but I think the more the CEO and or C-suite can just spend quality in real time with key managers, and those key managers do the same type of like quality time with their direct reports and with their managers, like, and that continues to pass on. It should be something consistent. It should be something intentional. It doesn't always need an agenda, although I like meetings with agendas and creating different themes for different conversations. But I just feel like, we lightly talked about already, like people leaders are really that gravitational force for retention. They shape how work feels every single day. And I think that the biggest thing that you can do more than like strategy or perks or inspirational posters, like, is really just having that space to call out the uncomfortable truth and like just
Right.
really, yeah, give that time for the managers to play like a role within the organization.
Mm.
Yeah, I think for us, it's connect and belong is one of our values, and we really focus on connection and connection points. Which is, easier said when you have a majority of your folks located in one spot as we do, but we do also have remote folks throughout the country, and we do really commit to bringing everybody in a couple times a year and making sure we're doing volunteer days together, give back days, and having company-wide events. So for us, that's a really important piece and we know that it makes a difference because through exit interviews of people leaving, the first thing they say is, "I love the culture. I loved how I felt like I belonged. I love," right. And so we know through that, and then they meet with our CEO within the first 6 months as a new hire, and that's always one of the first things is like, this is amazing to have this focus on connection. And so we find different ways to connect with our remote folks as well and bring them, not just bringing them in, but also, online or having them engage in scavenger hunts and things that they can do that aren't exhausting for the tech piece. But I think that's probably the way we focus most on that retention, and we hear from employees that makes the biggest difference.
Is it safe to say then things like maybe looking at participation or doing like quick little pulse surveys after an event, or like there's some like kind of quantitative numbers you can look at to just see how successful those things are, or is it mostly qualitative?
It's mostly qualitative. We've halted pulse surveys from survey overload for a while,
Yep.
so we but it's mostly the qualitative that we receive that information.
Got you.
Yeah, I love that connection piece. I noticed some really cool comments saying that Sandra wrote that her CEO has office hours, which is a really cool idea. I love that. But something similar to what Julianne, in onboarding, we have folks meet with the kind of the heads of each department as well as the CEO within their first couple of weeks. And I feel like it's the connection piece, but also the accessibility piece, right? Like these folks are here. We're all aligned with like where the company is going with the same goal is to help the company be successful. So just getting to meet and have FaceTime with those folks so early on in your journey, I think is kind of cool.
Yeah. I like that a lot. Something fun that we actually just wrapped up over here at ThinkHuman is that we were looking at our values and we were like, we actually want to like add a new value that's around like resiliency and ownership. And so a team of us got together and we just like did like a brainstorm together, and it was just us, no leadership, and we're all in from different teams, and we all got to like co-create this piece and this value and then actually like present that to our leadership team. And I feel like that was a really like fun way for us to have like dialogue and also just like have fun with each other as well. And it was literally like, I think 45 minutes of our time together as a team. So it was, yeah, I think that was like a really impactful way to connect to the organization and then also connect to leadership as well. Yeah. So we've talked a lot about managers. I feel like we all can kind of say that it feels like managers are really the linchpins of organizations and retention, but they may not always be set up to succeed. And so I think we've heard about things like, let's give them, different like user manuals for like how they can actually have conversations with their team. I would love to hear a little bit more. What are other things that organizations could do tomorrow to better support managers?
I mean, honestly, I think the simplest thing is checking in on that. I hate to say middle level, right? That manager that's kind of compressed at both ends, and doing real check-ins with them. Just I think we just miss a lot of the signs, because we listen to their leaders and we're hearing, oh no, things are good or they're moving right, and you're missing those little nuances that are happening within meetings, that they're giving signals that people just aren't picking up on because it's too fast. And so honestly, I think for support, it's finding those people, business partners that can really connect with those managers and just checking in. What do you need? Where are you struggling most? What obstacles are in your way that we can help your leader remove, help you and your leader remove. So I think those are definitely pieces of it. And also then really making sure leadership is truly connecting and making sure that their people are supported, which isn't always easy.
Yeah, I think to add to what Julianne said is like we really need to empower managers to kind of like step up, lead up, solve their problems, but we also need to like not just fail them by being like goodbye and good luck. Like I think that managers aren't failing, our organizations are failing their managers, and we're not really giving them the tools that they need to succeed on a day-to-day basis with empowering them with like engagement or solving challenges or creating meaningful conversations on a day-to-day basis, making sure that not just the work is done, but that work is getting done correctly, that we're creating a culture that allows people to speak up and share their thoughts and opinions on what's not working out. And, I maybe a little bit of a selfish plug, but we built a whole engagement suite around these things to help empower managers put together in a very seamless plug and play way an ability to create like meetings effortlessly that have those high impact. And I think, you guys can also do this on your own. It's really just a matter of taking their pains and like doing the work to making sure that like they know how to solve those next challenges ahead of them.
Yeah, I think just kind of doubling down on what's already been said, but it's how we can better support leaders is setting expectations too early with folks, especially when it comes to the important rhythms and rituals in the employee and leader relationship. I think a lot of leaders, especially new ones, they want to be good leaders, but they maybe don't know how, or they haven't been coached. So I think it's about showing them kind of the expectations in terms of rituals, rhythms, giving them resources, and then partnering with them as their leaders, the leaders of leaders, or your HR business partners, and coaching them in the real time when they're having those difficult conversations, performance, managing career development, that can all be coached along the way in real time. But I think setting those expectations for what does it mean to be a leader and a culture carrier at Bucketlist, for example. We're putting together We love a good playbook, love a good manual. So we're kind of working on something for like that for
Yeah.
2026, kind of iterating off of like the employee journey and all of those kind of things so that leaders have a really clear view of what their role is.
I love
Yeah.
that, Katie, the rituals and rhythms, right?
Hmm.
And in a remote environment, that's much harder for people to pick up on. And so being really intentional about what you're creating to make sure that that gets passed on when you can't just visually observe it all the time. So that's really great.
Hmm. And I know this is something we hadn't really talked about before, but I like that Elizabeth put it in here. I feel like we're talking about documentation or like how like user manuals and support for managers. What if like you're an IC or no, if you're even a manager reporting up to somebody else and you're spotting something within the organization, like what would you recommend for them on how to like surface or like manage those things up? Yeah, to help create change.
Definitely speak up. It's such a powerful, like the people in my organization that have become, uh, leaders, directors, they're the ones who have, been courageous enough to share their opinion. Now, I will say that like we really fostered a culture of speaking up, and it's okay that, our we have different opinions and different perspectives, and I know not every company is like that. But one of the frameworks that I personally really like is the SBI framework, and essentially it's all kind of cousins if you're familiar with like the nonviolent forms of communication, and you can essentially share within a pretty simple way that just to kind of give you like what it is.
Mhm.
It stands for, I'm pretty sure, situation, behavior, and impact. So if you explain the situation, explain what from that situation, what like the behavior ultimately translated to be, and the impact that it had in a very like matter of fact, not like a crazy, like very emotional way, you're usually able to kind of really share your opinion on like what is going on or what's not happening without like creating a
Yeah.
very defensive
Mhm.
response in exchange. So I highly recommend, I'm not that great with acronyms, but the SBI framework or nonviolent forms of communication. I'm very passionate about utilizing this in my day-to-day workplace and even just in my life, like when I'm mad at my husband. Um, I'll take a deep breath and I'll be like, okay, when you did this, it made me feel this way, and I need this as a result. So yeah, it's
Yeah.
very helpful.
The relationship dynamic. We're all like these are all different types of relationships, right? So I think that's a really good call out, Lee. I'm curious, and we haven't talked too much about recognition, but Katie, I would love to get like your perspective. So like with tight budgets just across the board, like in this economy, how do you see like HR teams getting really creative about recognition without solely relying on pay increases? And then of
Uh,
course, I see some folks talking about remote as well, if you want to add that piece.
Totally. I think everybody's feeling it. Budgets are tight. I think we're starting to realize that recognition doesn't always have to come with a big price tag, but what it does need to feel personal and thoughtful. So we're seeing, our clients and other organizations get really creative with non-monetary awards. So things like maybe it's extra time off, maybe it's a no meeting Friday for somebody, or company swag. Within our bucket list platform, you can create custom awards. So to bring a bit of like personality into the experience. So we see some really fun ones like having your manager personally deliver your coffee, or maybe it's getting a VIP parking spot if you're in the office, or you have a meeting room named after you for a month or something like that. Just like you can get fun, and it's like those playful touches I think that people remember, and it creates that connection, the spark, and honestly a bit of laughter. And it goes a long way in keeping people kind of like engaged, and I think you can just have a lot of fun with it.
How about you, Julianne, Lee? Anything Anything you see that your teams or that you've just seen in your networks about how people are getting creative outside of just pay increases?
Yeah, I I really love a lot of the things that Katie said. I also feel like, peer nominated kind of badges, as Katie kind of alluded to, right, for just behaviors that matter, and like getting fun with like superlatives, or maybe during different access-based rewards, like joining a strategic meeting, or having this joining the CEO for lunch. These things don't cost money. It does cost maybe a little bit of creativity, but the impact is really massive. And you can shadow a leader for a day. You can, like, get an internal mentor instead of an inexpensive course per se. Like, there's so many different ways that you can still encourage even like personalized development, without that feeling of like a giant price tag.
Yeah, I mean, I second. We have a ring the bell virtual wall where people get to celebrate each other, right? And so finding those peer-to-peer recognitions and opportunities for that, as well as we have quarterly awards that we give that are non-monetary. That really, it's just about really making sure that at certain levels of the organization, they know that the leaders are seeing them, are seeing the work that they're doing, and really celebrating that to add on to all those other great ideas.
Yeah, I think like tight budgets really aren't the enemy of retention. It's like
Mm,
lazy thinking and like
say it
just lack
again.
of
There you
making it
go.
happen.
I think that's like such an important call out, right? I mean, I think we can like create resistance against the like realities that we can't change. So how do we work within like what we have and have those honest conversations with ourselves about capacity, with the organization about where the goal, like where our goals are. Yeah, I think that is a really good call out. I like that you said that, Lee. How I'm curious, how would you kind of change, or I want to say, how would you just design like recognition in a way that feels really genuine and really can help these be like ongoing cultural momentum? Like, right, not just moments in time, not just like it was your birthday or it is the holidays or it's the end of the quarter. Like, what does it look like to embed this into your organization?
Something we do, I think, to for genuine recognition. Sorry, I'm stumbling over my words here. Genuine recognition really starts with making it meaningful. So what we do is we have our core values at the center of everything we do within recognition. So honestly, I've never worked at a company where core values are so embedded in the day to day. A lot of places they are just words on a wall somewhere.
Yeah.
But I would put money on the fact that every single person at our company could recite our core values if put on the spot. But so with every single recognition tied directly to a value, you're able to like scroll the feed and see exactly what every value looks like in action on the day to day. I often tell new hires, just you want to see what they look like, take a look at our feed. And it's a really authentic snapshot of the culture, I think, and people living the values and appreciating each other and celebrating those real moments of impact.
I like that a lot. Bringing those things alive. Yeah.
I'll drop a resource in the chat. I really recommend, like, almost the end of the year, we're starting a new year. Take like a step back and like map out your moments that you think are important for you. We created like a little template. It's a micro moment mapper. You should have your daily moments, your weekly moments, your monthly
Mm,
moments, and your milestone moments, and really think to yourself, okay, like for me, the daily moments, in my opinion, it's really just a habit. It's like, okay, I have a weekly stand up with this team. I have a daily one on one with this person. How do I really incorporate that like positive recognition and that positive energy into those
mm,
meetings? What are the small things that I can say? What are the shout outs that I'm deciding to go
mm,
publicly? How often am I doing that? Like, I wasn't great at recognition for the first few years of my leadership. And what really helped me is like Friday, 9 a.m., I have a calendar put in like a
yeah.
block of 15 minutes. It's not that big of a deal, 15 minutes where I sit with myself and I think to myself, like, who wowed me this week. And it's not forced, like in the sense that like if I really think that I don't have anybody to say this week, like I'll skip that week. But like almost always I have that person, and I might send them an individual like thank you. I might go into our gratitude channel on Slack and send a note publicly if people really went above and beyond. But it's really a matter of making that habit. And at least what I've seen at Confetti is I mean, some of it is, I think, because I do it, my team follows. But again, the manager sets the pace for things. So like, it's really important that we're encouraging the highest level of senior leadership to do these actions because their directors are going to do it. Then the managers under those directors are going to do it, and people are going to follow. But from HR, you can start by saying, okay, what are the daily, weekly, monthly moments that we're going to like map out and that are important? Think about what industry you're in, what milestones you're trying to hit, and then take a look at your budget. And then maybe if you want to go big on the milestones, you don't put as much budget in your weekly or monthly moments, and you get creative with what you're going to do. Like some of Katie's amazing ideas around of taking the best employee and making the meeting room name. I love that. It's so cute. It's so creative. People feel good about it.
Yeah. Great connection.
Oh,
sorry.
I was just going to say, I think Lee mentioned something important. I don't think that recognition comes natural to everybody. So myself included, similar to Lee, I have a note task at the end of each day just to reflect and like, okay, is there anyone that I want to appreciate or recognize today? And I kind of, I have weekly points, so I make my little list, and at the end of the week, I do up all my recognitions. But I have to remind myself, and it does get easier over time. But if it's not something that comes natural, there's nothing wrong with reminding yourself. And I think also modeling behavior as leaders, could be part of the expectations that you have on your leaders, like leading by example on how we do recognition around the company and what we expect from our leaders to show the team how we want people to behave.
Right.
Yeah, we've embedded it into our team meetings where we do appreciations at the end. And so that's actually the longest part of our meeting is it's gotten so where everyone is just appreciative of all these little things that the rest of the team has done for each other in the week prior. And so it definitely took a little while. And so it doesn't come naturally, but now people are like actually writing that down daily to be like, oh, I want to make sure to appreciate them at the next meeting. So it's a really strong tool.
And I'll say from like maybe it's an overshare, maybe it's a vulnerability moment, but like, I grew up in a family that like didn't really give me that many like positive compliments growing up. It just wasn't part of our culture. And so like I remember this point in my life where I was actually an ex-boyfriend who was like, you don't compliment me or something like that. And I was like, I definitely think it, but I'm just not like, why I don't need to say it. And I remember that was like an aha moment for me that I was like, okay, like some people really need that. And I think if you're an employee who feels that way with your manager, it might be that they haven't realized that they haven't developed this skill or this thing. It doesn't necessarily mean that you don't deserve that or you aren't worthy of those compliments. So take that on one thing. And then also don't be like afraid to kind of, find a way to create your culture internally. Just because your manager isn't complimenting you per se doesn't mean that you can't start complimenting even your manager. And even that act of taking your ownership and building the culture that you would like to see within your team or within your organization might inspire somebody else to be like, hey, you know what? It's actually really nice that I'm getting compliments. I should start telling other people that nice words too. So I
love that.
You don't change.
You don't know what you don't know. And I feel like, really like modeling those behaviors because we all come from different backgrounds is super critical. I cannot believe we are already like at the last like 10 minutes of this. I know we have some Q&A questions to get to, but I would love to hear like a brief kind of one line from each of you. So as I kind of just personally reflect on a lot of the things that I've heard from you all and what's been working, communication is key. The pace and rates of everything is changing. Just setting up very intentional moments, nothing like groundbreaking, revolutionary. 15 minutes in your calendar, 5 minutes at the beginning of a team meeting, maybe embedding your values in that onboarding doc, like giving people the ability to see how to form these connections will just create these like amazing cascading effects so that we can stay connected and aligned in this rate of change. And so if you all had to give your kind of one line of all the things we've talked about, what is one strategy that you would recommend that people can go ahead and just start implementing at the top of the year or on Monday before we break for the holiday? What would that be for you?
Well, no better time to start than Thanksgiving week to show appreciation. And so role modeling what the week is supposed to be about, right,
Yeah.
is really just that gratitude for the people that make a difference in your day. And I think that can be done today and it can be done all next week and beyond, hopefully.
Love that.
Well, I don't know if this answers your I know that's like time's ticking and I need to say something, but I'm going to reiterate the fact that like the role of the manager is about to get 10x bigger and there's flatter orgs, there's tighter budgets, there's continued pressure on headcount. Managers are just going to own more of development, retention, like culture, coaching, real-time decision making. So I would say like if there's one thing that you could do tomorrow is think like how can you better empower your managers to show up tomorrow and be the best version of themselves that they can be to keep your team where they are.
Yeah, mine would be very similar to that. Just focus on your leaders. They are be a partner to them. That relationship, that's what it is. It's a partnership. We have the same goal, helping people succeed and creating the best possible employee experience. So equipping your managers and then working alongside them throughout the employee journey.
And I know I'm very proud of us for going basically the full hour. And I think we only mentioned the big buzzword ones, but we didn't talk about AI. And I do think that make sure you're embracing the tools. They're here. There's no way around them. We got to learn to, to skill up with these tools and they can be a positive things in our life.
And even echoing some of the things that we've talked about too, it doesn't have to be groundbreaking, revolutionary. You can ask, it can be your thought partner and like, what are the ideas that I could bring to my team, right? What are the messages I could send? So, well, I want to thank you all. We still have Q&A to get to, but I actually want to bring the fabulous Rebecca on stage. Rebecca, we won't ask you to recite bucket list values, but I did think about it because Katie said, I want to bring Rebecca on.
I can do it, I promise, but in the interest of time, I won't. Awesome. Well, thanks, Tila, and thanks, Katie, Julianne, and Lee, for such an awesome conversation.